Welcome to Faith in Vegas, presented by KEEN TV 17, a program to inspire and inform our viewers about the unique community in which we live.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Faith in Vegas. I'm your host, David Lee, and thanks for tuning in. I know you're looking at me like, what's going on? Just something different. Well, I'll show you. We got a different set going on today. It's a special episode, and it's a special set. So, I'm going to introduce you to our guest right now. Her name is Jeanette Barron. Jeanette Barron, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Jeanette, I got to ask, what brings you to Las Vegas?
What brings me to Vegas? A ton of things brings me to Vegas. To be honest, I was in an abusive relationship. I had decided that it was best for me to come and start over, to escape, even though he wasn't, we weren't a couple anymore, he was still causing kind of drama. So I had to get in the car and drive 1,200 miles away, as well as I'd been here 5 years ago. So doing that, I did some comedy here, and I knew that this is where I needed to be. This is exactly where I needed to be in my life.
Oh, wow. And where'd you come from?
Austin, Texas.
Austin,
Texas. Yeah, you're like, why'd you leave that for
Yeah.
for this? They're both big cities. I'm a big city girl. I don't think I could imagine myself in a smaller town or a smaller, a state that's not well known. But Vegas just seems to mesh with me, and I'm a city girl. I've always been a city girl.
Yeah, and then do you like it more?
I love it here.
Yeah?
I love it here. I call when I talk about the people that I've met, this is my tribe. This is where I've met my tribe.
Man. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeanette is a storyteller, and then she's also a stand-up comedian. But the stories aren't always fairy tales, and the jokes aren't always just jokes. They come from her life. And Jeanette, where do your stories come from?
Everything is me. Everything is original. It's me. It's stories about my childhood. It's stories about dating. It's stories about my grandmother. It's stories about my mother, my father, anything and everything. My children, whom I love. It's everything. It's my religion. I talk about my Christianity. I talk about everything under the sun that has happened to me and that what I'm going through.
I remember one of the first time I met you, or the first time I met you was also the first time I saw you on stage, and we were at a donut shop.
Yeah.
And I was talking with another comedian backstage, and then I hear like out loud, "I'm here to talk about my molestation,"
Yeah.
and the whole room went quiet.
Yes.
What happened? And not in so many words, maybe not too much detail, but what. That's a tragic thing that can happen to anybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, it happens. The statistics are high. A lot of people don't come forward, and I'm more where ever since I was little, I was always the tattletale or the one that was really verbal, very well spoken. So with me is after being a certain age, you want to come forward eventually. And for me, I've healed a lot through my Christianity. And because of Christianity, if I wouldn't have been saved, I probably would not have been so verbal about it. But because I'm a Christian and I know that God leads me through everything that I do in my life, I knew that it was time to come forward. And if it's to help someone else, if it's to help my friends, if it's just to heal for myself, every day that I deal with it or I talk about it publicly is I heal within myself. If it helps someone else, then thank God that it does. Thankfully it will. Hopefully it will help somebody and reach somebody.
So, how old were you?
My memories are between 8 and 10.
8 and 10.
Yeah. Even with my cousin knowing the full story, she doesn't know exactly how old we were. I can't look back and even imagine, but I do know that it's between 8 and 10.
Wow. And so, like, now that you're an adult, does what happened to you affect how your relationships?
I'm not trusting. It affects me, and I'm not trusting. I'm more skittish. I'm more standoffish with relationships. So even though has led me into an abusive relationship. I know that it's led me into an abusive relationship because my self-esteem was shattered. My, what I felt, my self-worth, it's low. My self-worth was low. And so it's devastating. And so when I think about it, it's ruined a lot of who I could have been. As a child, I was a social butterfly. I remember being the kid that was the girl that walked in the room even when I was little and lit up the room. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I'm more standoffish. Now I'm more reserved. Now I'm more mean. I was mean, just angry. I became really angry up until I was about 18. And I left to go to school at a school in Albuquerque, New Mexico, to get away from my family. Once I turned 18, I was like, I'm gone. I'm out of here. And even though I was 18 and trying to develop healthy relationships, I was still really skittish with who I allowed. And for some reason, I think that being a victim, in a sense, having that scent of a victim, attracted my abuser.
And when did you know you found healing?
I found healing through Christianity. I was about 37 years old. I was 37 and I walked into a pantry and they asked me if I needed anything, and I needed food. I was out of the abusive relationship, trying not to take him back, and he had cut me off financially. So I ended up in a food pantry and asked for toilet paper, and they were like, well, let's guide you over here. And so I went over to the other table where I met my future deacon. My future deacon would say, hey, do you want to get saved? And I said, for some toilet paper, let's do this, yo. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go. And ever since that day, I remember sitting and being saved at the table and crying because part of me didn't want to. Mm-hmm. I've heard in life that you have 3 chances to become saved. And I remember the first time was when I was really young, going to church with my grandmother through the Catholic churches. I remember the second time was when I was 18 and I walked into the Potter House where we were listening to heavy metal Christian music. And it was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I remember being pulled. And then the third time was this time at 37 when I was leaving. And that day at that table, I knew that my world had shifted right then, saying that prayer. Because what happened for me was I had to repeat everything that they were saying. It was a prayer that we were saying. I can't remember all the words because I was in tears, but it was turmoil inside. Yeah. I remember I felt like everything was shaking and I was trying to resist, but I knew that this is what I needed. And ever since that day, I feel that in some ways, I've been healed just from that moment.
Wow. Oh, man. And you know what? We're going to hear more about that. We are going to hear more about that story after the break. Hey, everybody, thanks for sticking with us. We're still here with Jeanette.
Yes.
Jeanette, you were just talking to us about your molestation.
Yes.
And I said it. I said the word. We're not going to water it down. We're just going to say how it is. Your molestation. Did you find healing? Like, I want to go a little bit more deeper into that. Did you find healing with it?
I found healing with the certain people that were in the story for me is my grandmother. Mm-hmm. I was in my grandmother's care. A long time ago, I found forgiveness for my own mother who put me in my grandmother's care. But I've heard before that it always takes a long time, that we always end up blaming everybody else but the actual attacker. And for me, it took years to try to make peace with my grandmother, who, when she passed away, I was still angry at. From the age of 18 to 37, I was angry at my grandmother. I don't think that she ever understood, but I would avoid phone calls from her. And when I became a Christian...
Let's talk about that. Being a Christian, how did you find the church? What brought you to that church?
That church was through the food pantry. The food pantry said, come on over to our church. And my new deacon that had saved me, said, come on over to the come on over to the church. And I ended up at a Southern Baptist Church in the Bible Belt of Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, the Bible Belt of Texas, and highlights and lowlights about being a Southern Baptist. But the most important highlight was basically starting over. It was like being born again and being a baby and having somebody tell you exactly what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Which is, all the bad habits that I had that I carried over, trying to cleanse those and trying to, walk a straight path.
You're also a stand-up comedian, and you're a storyteller, stand-up comedian. Do you tell this story on stage?
I do. Whether it's comedy, I try to make light of the story, just to kind of reach audiences, to relate. Whether it's a story, when I do the storytelling, it's a little bit more deeper.
Yeah.
You may see me actually pause and kind of put my head down and take those breaks when I need to take those breaks when I'm feeling something. I think that the biggest thing for me in storytelling is the silence.
Yeah.
Because once that silence hits, it impacts the whole room.
Yeah.
I don't make it easy during storytelling. I
Yeah.
make it as brutally honest as possible.
And that can be gold. Silence can be gold in storytelling, but in stand-up comedy, it's deadly to us.
Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
how does your
Yes,
audience
yes.
perceive what you're saying? How do they take
For
it?
comedy.
Yeah, for comedy.
For comedy is, I think that for me is, it gets dark. That's the one kind of joke that I do. A few of them that's where it gets dark. That's where my dark comedy comes in, which is not much. I don't usually do dark comedy, but when I do it, it's talking about something more serious, which is being molested by an uncle of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to make fun of it and say, things like, I have this one bit where I talk about a girl had came up to me and she was the headliner. And she had told me, you weren't funny. You were up there talking about this and that. And she basically said something that's kind of, that makes me uncomfortable. But she had basically said, I bet your panties stink. That's what she said.
Wow.
And when she said that, it was the first time I think that I really dealt with my uncle. So when I talk about this joke, I tell this joke where, I go to this comedy show. She tells me that I bet your panties stink. And it kind of threw me into a loop where I started remembering, that's exactly what my uncle said to me, just in a different tone, where he says, I bet your panties stink. And then he inhales. I do this inhale thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
So I do this where it's kind of dark, and the dark people get it.
Yeah.
The people that are dark understand me, where other people are like, ugh, that's kind of too much for us.
Yeah, yeah.
But, trying to relate to a whole bunch of audiences at once is, you have to do this. I have to do this. I feel compelled to do the dark and the ugly and the funny,
Yeah, and that makes me wonder, because I've done stand-up comedy, and as a Christian, I still did the shows. I tell people that I have a church set and I have a club set.
Okay.
Okay, and then they understand.
Yeah.
So, where would you classify yourself? Would you classify yourself as in the Christian comedy genre?
No. No. I am what I consider falling from grace comedy. That's my thing, is I've fallen from grace. I'm not walking the straight and narrow anymore, because my ideas and my beliefs are a little bit different now. I've walked into that Southern Baptist church and I walked out a completely different person. I've made some really great changes, and there's some things that I'm not willing to let go as a Christian. People will tell me that I'm not a Christian because of what I believe.
Yeah.
Whether it's about, about gays. I have a undying love for people that are gay, because I feel like they saved me in their own way from that abusive relationship. There's a lot of things I disagree with. The trying to be something that I'm not ready yet for. I think that for me, God tells me exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I say this all the time is, God, lead me. Let me be your vessel, move my hands, move my feet, take me where I need to be.
Yeah.
And let me say what needs to be said at the right time. And so for me is, it's changed me where it's for the good, But at the same time, there's still some things that are ingrained in me that are beautiful. And it's what makes me me. And I know that it's in there where he made me, whether it's to be a little bit more strong-willed and to hold on to those values that I have. You know, I think that everybody's different, and everybody's walk with God is going to be different. And mine is, you can't sit there and dictate to me what I know in my heart is right.
Yeah. So is it safe to say that you're in the market for a new church?
I am. I am looking for, in Vegas, it's very hard to find a new church for me.
Okay.
I've walked into churches before, and I feel like for me, even being younger, when I was younger, being with my grandmother, I didn't feel like I was at home at that church that she took me to, which is about 2 of them. We ended up at 2. When I was 18, I ended up at another Catholic church, and then I ended up at a born-again Christian church. It was that born-again Christian church where I felt that I was ready to raise my hand and say, baptize me. But yet I still held back. Then it comes to the churches that I've been to where being older is, I always have felt that I need to be called. Like I have to sit in there and I have to feel it. I have to feel it. I have to hear it. I have to feel that I'm at home. And if I don't feel that, I'm not staying. I'm not sticking around.
Gotcha. You know, I want to hear more about that. After the break. And hey, still here. Yeah, so Jeanette, you've had that situation happen, the molestation. You also and you talk about it in your stories and stuff, and we talked about your faith, your walk with God. Now, you said in before we left, you talked about walking out a different person.
Yeah.
So you left the church.
I left the church.
Why?
I left the church because it was a Southern Baptist church. And I felt that they were always telling me what to do. You know, they were telling me, like, you know, you're in choir now, don't blink your eyes, you know, you look seductive. And I'm like, who's thinking that I look seductive? Who's out there saying this? But it wasn't just that. It was, you don't dance. You know, we're Southern Baptists, we don't dance. But I felt the music, and I felt compelled to dance. And I wasn't doing it in any other way but to feel the music, which is, I love music. Yeah. To be in choir and to be singing these songs that you felt, you know, it wasn't, it touched these songs touched my heart. They touched my thought process, you know, they made me think a different way. And here I was dancing, but I was told not to dance. It was always being critical, I felt, of everything I did. Yeah. And at the same time, it was, in a way, kind of grounding me. But at the same time, I wasn't willing to let these things go. You know, I dance. Yeah. God gave me body parts to dance and to move my body and to do the... do the worm. Yeah. Yes, you know, how can you not, you know, the robot, you know? Yeah, you know. In other words, I don't have really great dancing skills, but I felt that they were constantly kind of, in a way, criticizing who I was, and I had to walk away. I walked away way before coming to Vegas. Gotcha. I had to get away and collect myself and try to figure out what is good for me. Yeah. And it was good for me at the time, but then it became not good for me. It became, in a sense, detrimental. Yeah. You know, trying to figure out, you know, scheduling and trying to bombard myself with being this really holy person. For me, being at that age, 37 years old, I was already who I was at that age. And so here you were going to unwind me. Yeah. 37 years of being who I was, you were trying to unwind me. And it was overwhelming for me. Yeah, and it's not to say that, you know, that Southern Baptist is a bad church. No, not. No. You know, everybody has their own preference, you know. Maybe you like to dance, and maybe you like to blink. Yeah. People need to blink. Yes. You know, your eyes will get dry. Sometimes the eyelashes are just so heavy that you just blink longer than you're supposed to. So, you know, there are churches out there that, you know, and that's cool. Yeah. And so,
And I believe that we go to sometimes we move from church to church, and some might see that as indecisive. You can't really mesh with the church, but maybe you're just there to learn something from a certain individual or group, and then learn from someone else somewhere else. I think.
Yeah, I think that maybe I've come off as where you may seem that I'm bashing the Southern Baptists. No, they had their influence on me. Like I said, it grounded me. They helped me become who I am even now, you know. They took some stuff that was bad away from me, and then they were trying to push too much stuff on me, but it's not all bad. I just believe that for me is maybe I am supposed to walk into different churches and find what works for me and mold me and make me see these different ways of living and these different ways of these, you know, this life that I have, which is, you know, these people that walk with God in different aspects, which is, you know, the Southern Baptist, Lutheran, you know, Urban Baptist, you know, which I've been in there, and I loved it, you know, but I had to walk away from that one as well. You know, you know, my walk with God, I was a Catholic, you know, when I was a little girl, I was baptized as a Catholic, you know, so I think maybe I'm just supposed to, in some sense, experience everybody's love of him, you know, in different ways. Some are just more stricter, and some are trying to ground themselves and erase everything that's bad at once, which for me was that church that I was at. But, you know, maybe there's a whole nother way that I need to open my eyes and I need to see.
Gotcha. So you were a nomadic Christian.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that sounds right.
Yeah. Makes sense. I was the same way. You know, I came from a Catholic church. Then I went to a non-denomination. Okay. You know, and the Catholic church, I love them. I love them. A lot of Filipinos. You know, especially in Hawaii. I'm from Hawaii, and that's our first religion.
Okay.
And you know, but for me, I was just doing the same as Okay, time to kneel.
Yeah.
Oh, stand.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
What are we doing next?
Yes.
All right. Lift them up. Okay. We gotta lift them up. Oh, now we have to hug each other.
Peace be with you. Peace be with you.
Okay, now we're gonna get food. It's time for food and drinks. You know, and you know, and it was great. But I felt like I needed to see more, experience a little bit more. So I went to a non-denomination church, and then, you know, I moved from Hawaii to Colorado, and another non-denomination church, and another.
Oh, okay.
Because I kept moving.
Okay.
And
nomadic.
yeah, so
Yeah.
fellow nomads.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That makes sense. All right. So that's kind of like clarity right there.
Yeah.
That helps. That helps.
So let's see. Where do you see yourself going now?
Where do I see myself going now? Honestly, for me, it's storytelling and comedy, and I have to push this out. You know, I sometimes will tell people, you know, there was a time when I went to counseling, and they were telling me, oh, tell us all your problems. And I was like, no, it'll change me. It won't, if I heal through you, I won't be able to tell these stories. I feel like God has put me on a path where I have to go out and do this. This is why I'm here. Yeah. I'm more popular in Vegas than I am in where I was from, which I did comedy for 10 years in Austin. 10 years in Austin, a year of storytelling in Austin, and I'm more popular at this moment in Vegas than I am, you know, because I'm being more honest, and I'm telling these stories, whether it was the 15-year-old that, you know, I was 15 and grandma was trying to hook me up with a 21-year-old busboy, because that's how Mexicans do it. They're like, we can't afford you no more. You're expensive. You got to get married, you know? I tell these stories for a reason, is because it's for someone. And I think that God has put me on that path where I'm here in Vegas for a reason. And Vegas is a crazy city, you know, but there's so much pain here that I see.
Yeah.
I see it. I walk into a room, I feel it. You know, you feel this level of, you know, it's a weight, you know, and for me, I have to carry that weight and tell these stories, you know, and lighten up the room and make it known that I've been through this stuff. You know, I don't have any secrets anymore.
Wow. So, if our viewers wanted to find out where you're performing, where you're telling a joke or a story next, or even invite you to their church. If they wanted to get a hold of you, how could they get a hold of you?
I'm on Facebook. Facebook is www.facebook.com. I am Jesus in a pretty dress, all one word.
Nice.
I am Jesus in a pretty dress. And my Instagram is aka Jenny, no underscores, no anything, and Jenny is JENNIE, so it's aka Jenny.
Awesome. And you heard it. You guys heard it. And Jenny, thank you for being on the show.
You're
thank
welcome.
you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm glad you could make it, and I'm glad you could share your message with our viewers.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a blessed day and aloha.
Thanks for watching Faith in Vegas, a presentation of KEEN TV 17. We hope you've enjoyed today's program, and we'd love to hear your comments and suggestions for the show. You can contact KEEN TV 17 at the address on the screen.